those of you who don't know, my name is Gavin Frankel, and I'm a senior game designer on Dust 514. Yesterday at the Advancing the Core presentation, we spoke a little bit about what's to come in Dust and the improvements that we intend to make to the game. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the progression and gear changes that we've made in Uprising. So, skills, of course, are the heart and soul of progression in Dust 514. To that point, we've done a lot on the surface and in the underlying systems. As you can see from the screenshot, we've revamped the UI. It's now a node-based structure. It's very, very easier to understand. In the underlying systems, we've standardized the skill book pricing, and we've made the skill point costs more consistent. What this does, of course, is if you're purchasing an assault rifle skill or a forger gun skill, they cost the same on the market and they require the same amount of skill points, so you won't be penalized for choosing weapons for a specific role. Same goes for the Dropsuits, for the heavy frames and the assault frames, the medium frames, sorry. We've also simplified the skill prerequisites. What this means is it's now much easier to understand the relationship between skills, and it's far more convenient to plan your progression. It's far more intuitive to understand where you want to go and how you're going to get there. We've also done a cleaner distinction between the skill categories. Before we had things like electronics, and under electronics you would get bonuses to vehicles and Dropsuits. It made things it was cluttered and slightly confusing. We've now cleaned that all out. It's far more distinct and separated. If you're doing stuff for Dropsuits, it's just for Dropsuits, and vice versa for vehicles. We've also made more meaningful skill bonuses. We had a few too many PG and CPU skills in the previous build. We've now cleaned all that out. This is particularly noticeable on the modules. Module skill bonuses now improve the effectiveness of modules. We'll actually get to that a little bit later on as well. Going into the skills themselves, on weapons, we've done per weapon skills. Previously, the weapon skills would give you bonuses to an entire class of skills. So the light, heavy, sidearm skills would affect everything. Now they are per weapon. So if you're skilling up your assault rifle, it will not affect your sniper rifle. We've also removed the skills that affect weapon range. These were just bad. What they did before the sharpshooter skills is they really pushed weapons into ranges where they shouldn't be going. You had shotguns at mid-range instead of short range, assault rifles at longer range when they should have been mid-range. So those are gone. You'll notice in the build in Uprising that there are still sharpshooter skills on specific weapons, but they don't do anything to range. They now affect dispersion. Of course, every weapon still has the operation and proficiency skills. Nothing's changed there. And we have ancillary skills where they make sense. So going forward, we'll obviously be adding skills as we add new weapons, as well as to existing weapons when new features come online that make sense. And these ancillary skills will only go to the weapons that actually make sense to have them. On the Dropsuits, we have the race-based basic frame skills. These are essentially the Dropsuits as you know and love, or hate, I guess, in Chromosome. These, in Uprising, no skill bonuses. These are just, you advance through the tiers, through the militia standard advanced prototype, and they're essentially, as you know them now, they have the different slot configs, nothing new there. The role-based skill bonuses are now, beyond the race-based basic frames. You now have the role-based stuff where you can then get into the scout, the assault, the sentinel, these kind of roles, and these have skills which help you play more the way you want to play. These are also based on race, so depending on the race that you like to play or the skills that you actually want, they then sort of tie into the race-based categories that you know from EVE and that we're duplicating in Dust. For the modules, as I mentioned in the previous slide, the module skills now improve the effectiveness of the modules. So once you skill up, these module skills, they don't just unlock the higher tiers of Dropsuit modules, they improve the effectiveness. So you can go back and you can use a basic module and it'll give you more power output or just be more effective than a basic module without the skill. As far as market adjustments go, we've adjusted the standard, advanced, and pro tier pricing. These shows the differences between the existing, the old prices and the new prices. I don't think this is updated. This is just to illustrate essentially more or less the trend of pricing changes we made. Things have gotten a lot cheaper in the lower tiers. and a little more expensive in the really higher tiers. We've also revamped the composition of the standard, advanced, and pro tiers for all the gear. For instance, the nano hives, there was no real incentive to scale up into prototype nano hives. What we've done now with that is we've removed a lot of the variants out of the standard tiers. We've also given you more exotic variants in the prototype tiers. We've nerfed the basic nano hive slightly. These sorts of changes to make it more important to skill up to get to the really good equipment, the specialized equipment, stuff that makes a role worthwhile, instead of people just spending their skill points elsewhere. Now, if you really want a nano hive to support your squad, you have to spend the time and energy to get there. Of course, with the new improved gear, I'm sure you've seen these in the keynote as well as in various places. We have the plasma cannon, the flare-lock pistol, and the scrambler rifle. The plasma cannon is a single-fire energy weapon. It's very much a basic rocket launcher archetype. It's a light weapon, so it's carried by any dropsuits. It sits a little bit beneath the swarm launcher, I believe, on sort of the damage scale. So it's not going to encroach too far onto heavy territory with the forge gun. Yeah, I think it's a good weapon, and we'll see how people use it. We have the flare-lock pistol. It's a sidearm. It fires small rockets. This we've designed to mostly be an opener. It's sort of a weapon you'll use before a firefight begins. You get close. It's not good at sort of medium distances. It's really hard to hit small targets. You can use it against vehicles. Does a little bit of damage, mostly just to scare them off. But it's not great for infantry or moving targets at distances, at short range. It's obviously very, very powerful. It's great to sort of get a shot off, take a bit of their damage down, take a bit of their HP down, and then just finish them off with a different weapon. Then we have the scrambler rifle. This is an Amarian weapon. It comes in two variants currently. The basic variant is a selective fire weapon. It fires single shots, or it can be held down to do a charged, more powerful shot. And then we have the assault scrambler rifle, which is sort of very much the brother of the current Galente assault rifle. It damages shields. It has a damage bonus to shields and a damage penalty to armor. So it'll help against the old shield tanking that we saw a lot. People who shield tank against this will suffer. We also have improved the Nova Knife. It's now a charge-based. It has a charge-based attack. So the longer you hold the charge down, the more damage it does, up to an absolute point, of course. I think the Nova Knife feels a lot better in close combat. I think people will really enjoy using this. It's now, of course, you have to get really close to use it, but it does a significant amount of damage, and it's really worth equipping as a sidearm. The active scanner also makes its triumphant return. We're glad to have it back in the build. We've cleaned up the UI a little bit, made it far more usable, so you get feedback, you know what's happening. This will hopefully help in finding snipers in the terrain. We still have work to do. As I mentioned yesterday in the Advancing the Core presentation, there's a lot of work we need to do to improve the electronic warfare gameplay in Dust 514. The active scanner is the first step in that, or part of many sort of systems that we were doing for electronic warfare, and it's gotten much better in this build, so I'm excited to see how players use that. With new dropsuits, of course, as you saw in the keynote, we've rounded out sort of the middle layer of our dropsuit offerings. We have the MR and Galente medium frame, as you can see there in the picture, in the second one from the left and the last one on the right. These are, of course, they help us round out our assault and logistic roles for all the races. They all have, as I mentioned in the previous slide, they all have their race-based bonuses. So depending on how you like to play, you would also choose, if you want to armor tank, it's good to go with the Galente suit. Of course, the Caldari assault is still the best for shield tanking. So yeah, we have those. Of course, they all have different slot configs. So if you pick an assault, it's no longer tied to the suit as you were limited to the Caldari suit before. Now you have different slot configs for all the assaults, for all the races. You can really pick one that suits your playstyle. Of course, we have the Minotaur light frame as well, which then comes with the accompanied scout role. The Minotaur scout gets bonuses to melee damage. He's quick, he's fast, he's pretty lethal close up. We've also removed the Type 2s, the B series, and the VK1 suits. We did this mostly because these suits were introduced partially as a stopgap measure. We didn't have all the suits that we wanted at the time. These help to just fill those gaps, but we felt now was the time to sort of take them out as we start, as I mentioned in the Advancing the Core presentation, we're going to rounding out all these frames for all the races, and we no longer need these suits. A little bit more about the dropsuit progression. As I mentioned, we have the 3 frame sizes, the light, the medium, and the heavy. These, based upon race, you then scale up into the basic suits, which you still have. You'll recognize the militia, the standard, the advanced, and the prototype. Militia, of course, has no skill requirements. You can get that. You can try out the suits you like, then make a decision. Once you've skilled up through those, you get to the prototype level. You can then advance into a specific role. Right now, of course, we have the scout, the assault, the logistics, and the sentinel. The sentinel is just a name swap with the old heavy. And of course, from there, you can advance through the standard, advanced, and prototype offerings with these. These, of course, come with a skill bonus, as I mentioned. And lastly, we have the new vehicle roles. We have the Enforcer HAV, the Assault Dropship, and the Scout LAV. The Enforcer HAV is really good for long distance fighting. I believe it has bonuses to distance. The Assault Dropship gives a weapon to the pilot. He can now sort of gun people down instead of relying solely on the people in the dropship. And the Scout LAV gets bonuses to acceleration. It should be a little bit nippier and just better for getting around the battlefield. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? Actually, can we get this mic around there?
Thank you. I'm really glad to see the active scanner back. I thought it was a really interesting part of gameplay, especially coming from somewhere where I'd really like to feed intel to the rest of my guys. I brought this up in the other one, and they said to talk to you. Is there is there any plans to add in a droppable active scanner, like similar to a nanohive, where you could drop like a sensor array on the ground and and run away from it and leave it there, so it could feed intel to the rest of your team about enemy locations and things like that?
We probably will not do that, simply because moving forward, what we want to do as we get to conquest-style gameplay, more installation types coming into the game, that would probably be covered by an installation type. I did mention in advancing the core, we were looking at certain types of infantry deployed installations, sentry turrets, things like that. That is a possibility. It could be one of those. But yeah, it would probably be installations as opposed to infantry gear.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, my name is Lord Jannes from Norwegian Dust Corporation. I did a check on the internet on the scopes, and they did begin to make them in 1819, I think. And I wonder, when do we get scopes to our rifles again?
The scopes, we won't, not, as I mentioned in the advancing the core presentation, scopes are really tied to the type of weapon. In the future, as when we introduce Tech 3 weapon customization, those will be swappable. Right now, they're tied to the functionality of the weapon. For example, the Galente Tactical, it has a long-distance scope. Shorter range weapons, we will be introducing the rail rifle, weapons like that soon. Though certain versions of that, things like a breach-style weapon would probably get a red dot sight. So no, you will have variants that use scopes, but base variants, depending on the weapon style, will either have iron sights or a scope. They won't be wholesale across everything.
Okay.
With the removal of the Type 2 in the B series and the VK1, will the shield HP be buffed on the Caldari type suits?
They have not been buffed yet, but I think you'll find, especially with like Caldari Logistics and with the skill bonuses, you will be getting better use of the modules. So a good fitting, you can probably get numbers that approach those numbers from the Tech 2 suits, but also, you know, it's nice to see people trying to use the logistics. Still lacks that sidearm slot, especially on the Caldari. But you can use the logistics and try and shield tank that way, just given that it has more slots. But what we really want to do going forward is have the slots and the fittings really define how well something is, or how good you are on the battlefield. It's really through the modules that things gain power. It was one of the reasons we flattened the HP differences between the tiers earlier in, I think it was 2 releases ago, so that standard, advanced, prototype all have the same base HP stats. It's just through extra slots, through different slot configurations, that really the power and the versatility of the suits comes into play. Any other questions? Okay, well then I think we're done. Thank you, everyone.